What's up, friends? My name is Outdoors here. We're going to be looking at the EK1 from GX. We got the replacement. You may have been following and saw that I previously was sent one that was used. The box was utterly destroyed. This one has a small little dent in it, but you know, that's kind of expected, and that's just the outer box. So we're going to pop this open and see how we're looking. Also, apologies if you hear dogs in the background. I've got my two dogs running around here with me, so you may see them sticking their nose in and out here as we go. So let's crack this open and see what we got. Typically, yep, they do it the same as their other one. So like the EK2 that I had a while ago had the outer box, and then inside of it was like a crate, which is always nice. Kind of how you hope these sort of things are packaged, because they need the extra padding, especially with how heavy they are. Now, normally I kind of skip a lot of the unboxing stuff, but this is like a $1,200 compressor. So if you're planning on buying one of these, I'm assuming you want to do your research beforehand and really understand what it is you're going to be getting, including what the kind of packaging is going to be that your very expensive compressor is going to be coming in, and all that kind of stuff. So I want to show you all that. So this seam here is stapled. I popped the staples and then just tore whatever cardboard was left. Same thing over here. I'm trying to dismantle the box so that you guys can actually see everything inside of it, rather than just pull the crate up out of it. So hence my plan here. There we go. There we go. Drop the front down. So here you see we have our nice crate, and it does have screws that are holding it together. So you will need a drill. Fortunately, I've got one right here. So this, like I mentioned before, is the EK1. There is an EK2 version as well. The EK2 version just has two pistons instead of one. And it's, I believe, like $1,800 or so. Whereas this one is $1,200, and often you can get like a $100 off coupon. I believe that's what they have going on right now. I'll put a link in the description. If you use that link to buy one, then it supports the channel at no cost to you, so I greatly appreciate that. So each column here has 4 screws holding it together. They're almost just like a, let's see, don't know how well this is going to focus. They're almost just like a drywall screw kind of thing, but smaller threads. So I guess not a drywall screw, but you know, they seem to hold it together well enough. Dogs just hold down my dock. Got these all done. Okay, there's all that. So I'm gonna set these down, then we'll pull the top off of this. Moment of truth. Okay. So right on top here you have your operating instructions. It's shared between the E1 and the E2, EK1, EK2. You have your 2 metal handles, which come separate, as well as looks like the bolts to install them. These are nice heavy-duty handles, which I appreciate because, like I said, these are heavy. Now, there's styrofoam here. The pump itself is packed in here really pretty tight. There we go. So it's wedged between these corner blocks. And then right here you can see is the pump itself. On top you have your multi-purpose wrench thingy that fits all the main things on here. piece of styrofoam with a cutout for the coolant tank. And this one looks nice. This one does, it's all plastic wrapped in here. See, there's even more padding there. There we go. So, now what I actually like to do is install these handles and then use the handles to pull it out, because otherwise you have to totally dismantle the whole box or like tip it upside down and install it that way. And I'd rather not do that. So again, I'm going to go through and install those here on the camera, just because if you, like I said, if you're buying this, you probably want all the details you can, because it is expensive. But if you don't want to watch me install these, then go ahead and skip ahead probably just a couple minutes and you should be good. So you have your little washer here. What's it called? Lock washer, I believe, with the cut in it. Just going to slide that in there just like that. And it comes with the wrench. These are nice big Allen wrenches. One of those little ones to finagle with. Just tighten that up a little bit. Grab your next one. Each handle has two. Again, same thing. Put it in through there. And thread it in here. Make sure you don't get the plastic threaded in there with it, because that would be a bit of a pain. And I'm not going to cinch these down. I guess I might as well cinch them down all the way while it's here. Get that nice and tight. Now the EK2 is pretty hefty. I would not recommend just freehanding that out of the box unless you are very confident in your strength. The EK1, I think, will be able to just lift it up and out without too much of a problem. Might set the box on the ground first. Same thing over here on the other side. It's very obvious where the handles go. It's really the only like real assembly you need to do on this pump is adding those handles. So nothing to worry about there. Let's do that last one. Okay, those are nice and tight. We'll set this on the ground and pull it out. So, excuse me, doggos. I'm gonna use the handles just to set the whole box on the ground. And then we'll just lift the unit up and out. Hopefully the box stays on the ground. Okay. So it comes wrapped, which is nice. See that? But I do have a screw here at the bottom, which looks like it matches the case screw. So it might just be that one of the screws rattled loose or there was an extra one. I'll hold on to that. We'll find out where it goes. Then in your box, you've got a few more goodies waiting for you. You have your parts kit. So this is going to have like your extra wrench, O-rings, burst discs, Allen keys, screwdriver, really everything you need to service this for any normal repairs and that kind of stuff. I really appreciate them putting all these in here, because these are the kind of things that really don't cost a lot, you know. Like this whole pack probably costs less than $10 or $20, but without knowing the exact sizes of everything, it's going to be, you know, pointless. So you can see you've got tons of O-rings in there, basically every O-ring in the machine to do a rebuild if you need to, or if you know, have an O-ring get damaged. You've got your hose, and of course your power supply. And I believe that is everything. So let's walk through what we do to set this sucker up. So, first thing, has a sticker on the top here that says, before starting the machine, please add 50 milliliters of automotive coolant and make sure it flows into the water tank. I don't know why they say water tank, should be like coolant tank or something, but you know. So you take off the black cap, here's your water tank, and while the pump's running, this little thing will be circulating and you can see the fluid flowing through there. So let's walk through the other features of this real quick. This is your grease pot. It does have instructions here. Don't turn grease screw before 4 to 5 hours of use. After that, turn it clockwise 2 cycles for the first time, then every time turn 1 cycle after the speed slows down. So basically, wait for 4 to 5 hours of use, then turn it clockwise twice, 2 cycles, so I'm assuming that's 2 full rotations. And then when you hear it, when you can tell that it's slowing down, then turn it 1 more cycle to introduce some more grease. Now, in one of my previous videos, I did a takedown of the piston and all that kind of stuff, so it'll show you what's actually in there and all that. But basically, this is going to be introducing grease into your piston to help it flow smoother. But that's really all you need to know. This is also really easy to put new grease into. You can just open this up, and you can see right there, hopefully that focuses, you just fill that with food grade grease. And I'll have a link to that in the description below. But it's super cheap. It's like 10 bucks or something like that. Go ahead and tighten that up nice and tight. This is the little knob on top is the one that you turn to add the grease. The big knob is the one that you use to just attach the grease pot to the threads here. This right here is your burst disc, so if you ever go over pressure, this will explode rather than something on the inside that's going to be difficult to replace. So in order to replace a burst disc, you just undo this little cap on top here, which fits one of the tools that it came with, and you put a new burst disc in there, then go ahead and close this back up again. So that's a built-in safety mechanism. Pretty much every PCP pump has one, or it should. If you ever buy a PCP compressor that does not have a burst disc, I would return it. Then you have your gauge here. This has a nice little needle auto adjust that I'll give you a close-up here in just a minute, where you can set the whatever PSI you want to set it to. We're going to be going to 300 bar for the fill test we'll do here in just a minute. Has 2 needles. I'm not quite sure why. I've never had the first one fail, but it says it's like a backup. Now, here on the front, you have your bleed valve. You have your air outlet. You have your start, your stop. You have your hour meter right here, and you have your overcurrent protection. And this does work. I tested on the previous one that I had. It will shut off. And it has overcurrent, so that's good. And then this is where your excess fluid or air is going to come out when you open up your bleed valve. And it does come on wheels too, which is very nice and very much appreciated, especially for a unit this beefy. But there's the basics of it. So let's get this puppy fired up. So go ahead, push it over to the reset side, which is, oh, I forgot the coolant. Hold on, I gotta go find coolant. Don't start this without putting coolant in it. Luckily, I just turned on the fan. But don't make the mistake I did and start it up without putting in coolant. That's important. Okay, we are back. I started up and was about to actually fire the pump, and I remembered that I forgot to add the coolant. So don't be like me. Remember to add coolant. I just get Prestone, like recommended for all vehicles, just a generic coolant. I wouldn't get anything super specialized one way or the other. So what we're going to do is there's the cap right here on the middle. So you're going to go ahead and just undo that and just add your coolant. It's pretty simple. This part anyway. So it says to add about 500 milliliters to it, half a liter, which is about how much I've got left in here. I like to have a flashlight just to kind of monitor where my levels are at as I'm pouring it. Perfect. Like literally the perfect amount. you will notice that your coolant level will drop a little bit once you start it because it's going to start cycling that coolant. So don't be alarmed if you see a sudden drop. I mean, obviously, if you see stuff coming out the bottom, then be alarmed. But you will see it drop when you start running it. So I won't be concerned about that. Okay, now take your air hose. And a lot of people ask me, should you be running a filter with this? I mean, the safe answer, of course, is yeah, definitely run a filter. But this does have a small filter built into the intake, which I can show you guys when I pull the case off. And I live in the desert. Our humidity is basically non-existent, and I've never had an issue with humidity levels just from the built-in filter. So I personally don't run a filter, but you certainly can. And if you're in a high humidity area, I recommend you do. So next step, you've got your air plugged in here. Go ahead and plug your hose into whatever you're filling. In this case, we'll be filling an Umarex Gauntlet 2. Go ahead and open up your bleed valve. You don't want to pull it all the way open so it falls out because there's a little steel ball bearing in there that you want to stay in there. So just crack it open. Go ahead and hit your on there. Make sure that your pressure meter up here is set to the right pressure. In this case, I'm going to be filling up to 300 bar, so just a little under 4,500 psi. And then go ahead and hit start. Now, if you notice, this is pretty quiet. Go ahead and close your bleed valve. Now, you can have just a regular conversation while this is running because it's liquid cooled. It's not air cooled. So that's one of the big benefits to a liquid cooled unit like this, or the EK2 or the CS4i. The CS4i is another one that I have that I absolutely love. I'll probably do a comparison video between that and this, but fabulous pumps. Now we're building pressure already. Yep, and this was basically empty, so it'll probably take a little bit. But this will be a good example of how long it'll take to fill. This was empty, I mean like empty, and it's a 24 cubic inch tank at 4,800 psi, and we are currently at right at about 120 bar, just from us talking here for just a minute. So it fills up really quickly. It does have a little bit of side-to-side motion. I don't know if you can pick that up, but nothing really that I would be worried about. It's not going to roll away on its own, I don't think. We're at about 150 bar. So if you are interested in the time, go ahead and just skip forward a couple minutes, and I'll be going through the teardown of this and just showing you what's under the hood. But yeah, I'm just gonna let it run so you guys can see on camera and not sped up or anything like that how long this actually takes to fill, so that you can have a, you know, an honest comparison here. About 185 bar. While this is running, I'll show you guys over here on the side. No, let me actually, while this is filling, this is a great time to show you guys the details of it. So you can see you've got your nice little indicator here. This doesn't run on a motor or anything. The coolant is moved from some other mechanism built into it. This just lets you know that your coolant actually is moving. So just a nice little feature. Now the pressure tank, like I was talking about, you can see has two needles here. They're right on top of each other at the moment. But you know, there's one and there's two. So you go ahead and set those to whatever pressure you want to stop at. But you can see we're right at 200 bar right now. This is your water tank. This is your burst disc. And then your grease pot, of course. Now coming around to the front side, you can see nice and up close and personal here. We have our start button, we've got our stop button, our air output, the bleed valve right here, and then our overcurrent protection, and then your hour meter right here. So pretty simple, standard controls. It looks and behaves, I mean, it behaves pretty much like every other pump you're ever going to use, which is nice. Alright, we're at like 225 bar-ish on the gauntlet here. So the kind of person that I would expect would want a compressor like this would be either like a serious enthusiast, so somebody that has multiple air tanks that they want to be filling, or they fill tanks for their buddies, or like say you're an airsoft range that wants to be able to top off people's HPA guns, or a gun range or something like that, where you want to be able to run tanks, you know, throughout the day consecutively, multiple hours at a time, and fill them quickly. This is kind of right in between the CS4 and the EK2 because it's about an extra 400 bucks over the CS4, but then it's like, you know, 600 or 700 bucks, depending on the day and what coupons are there, under the EK2. So they're both really good units. The EK2 is just a bit longer, it's about like that, and it has a second piston in it, so you'll have another grease pot, you'll have another burst disc. I have another video on that. Go ahead and go check that one out if you're interested in the EK2. Do please use the link if you end up buying one. But you know, that's basically the difference between those. So, oh, I found where that screw came loose. So, if you remember, I had found a screw while I was taking this out of the box, and it looks like it's the screw that's right here next to the air output. So there's an aluminum block right inside of here. In fact, you can see the edge right there. And that is held. Oh, there we go. We just hit our 300 bar. But that aluminum block is held in place by some screws here on the outside. So once it's done filling, you're going to open up your bleed valve. It'll be loud. I warned you. And then go ahead and disconnect your gun. And you are good to go. You can see that we are topped off now. So, then in my case, I'm going to disconnect the hose and the power because now that you guys have seen the basic operation, I want to show you what it actually looks like under the hood and what you might need to do as far as like regular maintenance and all that kind of stuff. So, if you aren't interested in the maintenance portion of the video, or like understanding what's under the hood, here's my basic thought. Obviously, I just barely got this unit. So, my thoughts as far as its longevity are based off of what I've seen from other GX pumps that I've owned. I've owned probably 7 or 8 GX pumps. They have all performed well, with the exception of the one of these that I was sent that was used and damaged. But that was Amazon's fault for sending me a used unit rather than GX because they handled the shipping. And they've all performed well. They've all performed well over the long term as well. Like my CS4 pump I've had for over a year now. With regular use, it's worked great. I've used the CS3 extensively. It's done wonderful. They've all done really well. And so I'm very happy with my GX pumps. I've also reviewed other pumps, so, you know, but I'm personally biased towards GX. I like them. I think they're a good company. I've had good experience with their customer service when I've had to deal with them. Obviously, because I'm a YouTuber, even though I have a minuscule little channel here. Like and subscribe, please. Obviously, that does mean I probably get some favored treatment, but I have had good experiences with them. So, there's my 2 cents. I do think this is a really good pump. I think if you're looking at this pump, you should also consider the CS4, as it's just a little bit cheaper. But still a good one to consider, as well as EK2, which is considerably more expensive, but is going to fill things a lot faster. In fact, let me grab the CS4. Okay, for comparison here, this is the CS4. This is honestly probably, in my humble opinion, the best hobbyist level pump on the market. It is also liquid cooled, which I think is fabulous because it runs quietly. And it has nice, easy controls, all basically the exact same as the Big Brother here. You know, your bleed valve, your your burst disc, your grease pump, coolant, dual gauge, all that kind of stuff. Really the only functional difference is it will run off of a 12-volt battery as well, which is really nice for portability, and it's obviously much smaller and has a smaller piston, so it's not going to fill quite as fast. But it will run for a long time. It's liquid cooled, it'll stay nice and cool. You can fill even your bigger tanks with this. Just make sure not to go over the maximum runtime. See my video on this for exact details, but I think you can run this for like up to, oh man, I believe like 2 hours or something like that, and you can fill even bigger tanks with it. So this really is a fabulous compressor, and if you're considering the EK1, I think you should at least look at the CS4 and see if you want to save yourself some money. I'll have links to both of these in the description, but amazing pump. This is the one I personally use on a regular basis. Okay, let's tear this one down now. I'm gonna come back behind the table here so I can work on it a little easier. Now, basically this just has a whole ton of these little case screws that hold the thing on. And then it's like this, just the metal sheeting that goes over the top of it. There's a lot of them, so I apologize in advance. Again, feel free to skip ahead a little bit if you don't care about seeing the placement of all of the screws on this. But, you know, this is an expensive pump, and I want to be thorough in the information that I give you guys so that you can understand if this is something you want to buy or not. These ones right here are a little tricky to get to. Go. That. Nice little pile of screws there. Actually, let's go put this one in the front here to secure the block. This is the one that just wiggled loose. I do really like the trend in the industry of how compressors are almost always encased now. Like earlier in the industry, like with the Yonghang compressors and all that, it was just kind of wide open, which personally I found pretty sketchy. Because after all, 4,500 PSI is not to be underestimated when it comes to its explosive capability. You do need to take the coolant cap off before you can lift this up. Just as a note. Okay, there's the case. Put your coolant cap right back on so you don't lose it, or more realistically, so that you don't dump out your coolant. So let's run through this really quick. So right here you have your radiator with a fan that's mounted on the back. So that's where your coolant is going to be passing through the radiator and getting cooled. This is your piston here with your nice little certificate. I'm going to go ahead and take that off. This was manufactured October 14th of 2024. So here's your piston right here. You've got, you know, all the things that we can see from the outside, but your piston basically moves up and down here. That builds your air pressure. Down here is the electric motor that then spins a crankshaft, which moves your piston up and down. That then comes into this metal pipe that runs down along here and over to this aluminum block. Let me spin it around for you. That comes over to this aluminum block, which is also attached to your auto stop. Your auto stop then has a wire coming over to your control panel. On the front of this is your air output, and then as well as your bleed valve. When the bleed valve's open, then air will come out of this hose down here at the bottom. Your control panel also has a bunch of other stuff. It has a thermometer, or this might actually be the hour meter. I'm not sure. I believe it's a thermometer that comes over here and attaches to your piston. And then you also have, you know, all your different liquid cooling hoses here. These do use like a shark shark bite style connector. So if you do ever disconnect them for whatever reason, like say you need to drain the coolant out or something like that, I don't see why you would unless you're disassembling this, in which case you would need to. Then be sure that when you put them back in, try pulling it back out and make sure that it won't come out. But there's some really great videos out there on how to disassemble these and do a complete rebuild on this kit. I do not consider myself qualified enough to be able to show you how to do that, but I will put a link down below. I believe it's the Omega compressor. It had the original piston like this, and the instructions are essentially identical. As far as that little air filter that I told you about on the intake, it's this right here. It really is just a big block of like cotton or some kind of filter that you normally see in the other filters, like the external ones. So if you are in a high humidity area, again, I would recommend getting an additional filter, and I'll have one linked in the description below as well. So that's basically the guts of your compressor. The thing you're probably most likely to need to service, I mean, the thing that you are going to need to service eventually is your grease pot, obviously, which is super easy. You just pull it off and top it off with grease like I showed you. Other than that, unless something out of the ordinary happens, you probably aren't going to need to take the top off of this and dive into it. If you put a ton of hours on your machine, or if you aren't adding grease like you should and you have issues, then you're going to need to open up your piston here, replace some O-rings, do all that kind of stuff. But that would be after many hours of use or hours of abuse. Grease is important, cooling is important, as well as starting with the bleed valve open. If you do those things, your compressor will typically take care of you. You know, take care of your stuff, it'll take care of you. The other thing that I have seen occasionally on pumps is that one of these cables here will come loose from the control board. So if anything's being janky, if the start button isn't working, if your auto stop isn't working, whatever, just check and see if the control board has some disconnected wires. They aren't soldered or anything, it's a physical connection, so you can just slide it in there yourself, which makes it nice and easy. And I actually prefer over a soldered board, because if a solder board breaks, then you have to be good at soldering to be able to repair the board, whereas this, you just plug back in and you're good to go. So there's the teardown of the EK1. Again, glad to have a nice new one that I could show to you guys, compared to the used one that Amazon sent me. But I appreciate GX working with me and talking to Amazon to get me a new one sent out, because Amazon was giving me some crap about it. So that was always fun. But if this was useful to you, please, please, please use the links in the description below to purchase one when you decide to purchase one. It hugely supports the channel, especially because I'm so small that I'm really not monetized at this point. And so that really helps out.